Commence primary ignition.
Welcome to Unlimited Power. My name is D-Rod, and today we're going to look into the Planetary Qualifier that just took place this past weekend in Dallas, Texas, January 18th in 2025. So one of the bigger events happening in the South, and we actually have the head judge, Jeffry, here, who's going to be joining us. We're going to be asking him some questions on how the event went. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us. You and I go back a bit. We played another game before back in my time in Oklahoma City. We were playing a lot of a
Yep.
game called Super Show. And you let me know that you were getting into this game and you were a judge, and you've actually were a head judge at the previous Planetary Qualifier, one of the first ones over in Kansas City. And now you got to do this next one, and you have another one coming up and another one scheduled. So out of a lot of judges I've talked to, you're definitely one of the few who's had and has the most head judge experience. So thanks so much for joining me today. I'm glad you're
Glad to be
here.
here.
Perfect. And yeah, so let's just take some time, ask you a couple questions with the first one, which, is how long have you been playing competitive TCGs? And which game did you start with? Where did this love for tabletop begin for you? Because I know you're a tabletop player. I've had some matches, and yeah. So talk to us a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
My love of tabletop games started probably with Magic the Gathering back in 1994. A long time ago.
Yeah.
One of my first cards I ever opened up when Magic was a revised dual land, and I was like, this is just a land. I didn't know what it was at the time, but anybody that knows Magic now is like, dual lands are, top of the game kind of thing. But I love Magic, and then I got into playing a little bit D&D, and I've just been a fan of tabletops ever since. Like, it's I love games. I love playing. I love the interaction with people.
I'm with you. And that's what I love about what tabletop does. It helps us meet other people, and it's great that we met through one game, and here we are connecting in another one. And that's always one of those things I love of, like, we can find games whether they're short-lived or long-lived, like D&D or Magic, and just find those connections and have great moments. I know I've had some
100%.
amazing moments with you and your family playing games. So great memories, and love building on that.
Yes.
Now, were you a judge for any of these other games that you've played before, or is this your first game that you're judging for?
This is the first game I'm officially a judge. Um, I studied how to be like a Magic judge back in the day, and you have those group of people that you play with locally, and like, oh, I've got this question, like, and I was one of the few handpicked, like, oh, ask him, he knows the answer. So I was like the unofficial judge when it was just local, because I like learning, I like knowing all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But in an official capacity, this is my first time.
Yeah. Well, I definitely get that, and I'm glad you've taken the chance to do that. I think a lot of people who probably watch these videos have been in those situations where just like you're just the most knowledgeable person in your play group, and people will stop their games and stop your game to ask you a question, and that's
Yeah,
okay. It's
for
good.
sure.
So, what drew you to the Star Wars Unlimited card game?
Well, one, I'm a big Star Wars fan. And I've been looking for something new for a long time. I started off with Magic, and then I dabbled in other games. And whenever a game comes out, like, I think when Keyforge came out, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." And then it didn't stick with me. It didn't. I know it's still going strong in other areas, but then it just nothing really resonated with me. And then this time, when I heard about Star Wars, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to go into this, and it turned out to be just the right amount of interaction. It's not like Magic where you could have one person take 10 minutes to do one turn while the other person's just sitting there. It's got the back and forth, it's got the resourcing. I like everything about the game.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot different than Magic. Gives you more opportunity to interact, and again, giving the player a chance to say, "This is what you see on the board. This is what you can expect coming. do you have an answer for it? And I think just giving players that opportunity helps them grow. Because I think playing Magic, if you're not playing the certain type of deck to interact with your opponent, you don't really ever have to make those thoughts, right? It's kind of like you said, like Magic players, sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to play my deck, I'll play it for 10 minutes, and then you're going to play your deck for 10 minutes. And sometimes we're just racing and no interaction happens. So I'm glad this game gives us that opportunity. And that's what a lot of people say. Just like it finally feels like they have the ability to play. And that always sounds weird when people are playing card games, but if you've played Magic, especially against a lot of blue players, then you kind of know what that means about not having
Yes,
opportunities to play.
agreed.
So obviously you love Star Wars, you love card games, you've been knowledgeable in other games and have done that. What made the push for you to be a judge for Star Wars? Is it something you've always wanted to do, or is just the opportunity was
Yeah,
there this time?
yes. I've always wanted to be that person in charge, that authority figure, and I never really took the opportunity to do it. I learned about it. Like I said, I was locally like unofficial judge, and when I heard the Star Wars game came out, I was like, okay, cool. And then I heard about the judge program. It's like if I can get in at the ground level of this, I could do this. I could be something maybe. And honestly, I was scared to death that I was going to make mistakes. And you do make mistakes, stuff happens. So I just jumped off the cliff, and I knew that I was either going to fall or learn to fly.
Hey, I love that. There's a million reasons for you to not do something. It only takes one reason to do it, though, right? One good one. And I'm so glad you took that chance because, kind of said, like, maybe you'll be something. Well, right now you're an experienced head judge in this game. So you're something.
Yeah, that's true.
um, you're getting there. And so that's great. And the more knowledge and the more time and I know I'm excited to see you at one of these future events, and as now we know there's a couple of coming in June. That's probably something I look at, which is really cool.
For sure.
um awesome. So what's it like being a head judge at events like this, and what would be the difference between you as a head judge and another person who's there helping judge? Like what makes
The difference between a
yeah.
head judge and a floor judge?
Sure.
Okay. Well, first, what's it like to be
A head judge,
um
yeah.
head judge? I would say stressfully rewarding. That's the best way I
Okay.
can say it.
Yeah.
You always want to make the right call, but you also want to at least my theory is you want to prioritize the players having fun.
Mm,
If the players aren't having fun, if they're worried about a strict judge breathing over their shoulders, that takes away from the game.
yeah. Yeah.
And the difference between the head judge and the floor judge is basically I'm the final arbiter of what happens. And but I also see us as a group, even though I'm head judge and I have floor judges, like I still like get together with them, and I would still talk to them as if, they're judges also.
Yeah.
And so like the hardest thing is sometimes making that right call is the hardest thing because you're having to hand out a game loss or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I've been handed a game loss, and I took it with stride. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I think that's great. I think it's good that you're giving opportunity for even though you're the head judge and get the final decision. It's judges only get better if they're learning and growing and feeling empowered. And you're able to tell them like, yeah, that's the right decision. You came to the right conclusion, so that's great. Um, do you feel like there was a big difference between like, did you feel more confident going into this qualifier as your second head judge position?
yeah,
You feel like it's
I
easier?
definitely felt better. Like I knew what to expect at least. I mean, there was differences because the environment's different, and like in one of them, I took more of like head judge and scorekeeper role where I was doing the stuff on the computer, and then in this one, I just past week, the TO took the scorekeeper role altogether, and I was able to just focus on judging. So
That's great.
there's little differences between the two, but I've kind of had to learn all the roles. So like
Yeah.
I'm able to go beyond what the floor judge does. I can be the scorekeeper. I can enter in everything on melee and do everything that needs to be done.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's kind of what you want to obviously see in a lot of head judges, that they have the capability of doing those things, and hopefully don't have to, do all those things, but know how. And as someone who
Yes.
does tournament organizing at their local place, it can be a lot on the amount of people you have. So glad you got the help you need. And I know, obviously, this last planetary qualifier was at Dallas, which we'll talk about. And I know that their staff is always super helpful to do those types of things. As far as the process went for becoming a judge, what was that like? And did you find it challenging or even just intimidating because you were going through it for the first time?
For whatever reason, I did not find it challenging. Like I heard about it and I went to nexus.cascadegames.com and that's where you learn what you need to do to be a judge.
Hmm.
And the guy running that Jonah, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he puts out videos for everything. Like he walks you through everything you need to know to be a judge. And he's got lessons where you can have live Q&A, and then after that you can review them on YouTube under SWU judges. And being able to pick his brain and ask him questions, he helped me a lot at the beginning because I was able to be in contact with him on Discord. He helped
hmm,
me through like what to expect as a judge, and I was asking him questions like, "Oh, am I supposed to get paid or whatever?" And they're real advocates for you. You're gonna work, you're gonna get paid, and
yeah.
everything else. And so he was really helpful, a helping me pursue being a head judge, and it was a good fit for me. So it kind of just fell together and like it wasn't that challenging for whatever reason.
That's great. And Cascade Games does so well at advocating for its employees. I know, they almost operate at like volunteers as far as like how they try to acquire people. I've had the privilege of working for Cascade Games doing demos for Star Wars Unlimited. They're the company that ask for people to work at a lot of bigger events that we've seen at PAX Expos or big Comic Cons. So it's great to see how supportive they are of giving people opportunity and providing for people. I thought it was really cool how like that they're just one of those people that's like, we're going to make sure that people get paid, that stipends are taken care of, and of creating the support system there for people who may be intimidated or have questions seems really great. And I've seen that Discord and I've seen those videos, and I think that's one of the big differences, because I know I looked into magic judging, and I know you've looked into it too in the past before, and you don't see that same type of support for entry level.
No,
Like you don't see people saying this is how you really get your level one judge, and here's all the people you can ask questions. Like it's, I don't want to say it's gatekeeping, but for a long time the structure was, you need to go, if you want to be a level one judge, you need to be mentored by a level one judge. And trying to find the right person that you connect with was hard for a lot of people. So I'm really glad that there's more opportunity for people to grow, as well as find other people to talk to.
yeah,
Like I know Jonah's great, um, but I also know, since you're in that Discord community, that there's plenty of other people who may have answers that you may connect better with, which is great.
that is true. And I'm hoping in the future that I'll be able to step up and be like a mentee for or mentor for some mentees so that and be able to help them out. Like just this last weekend, there was one of the floor judges that I think he's going to go far. I really think he could be really good, and I told him to DM me personally on Discord and keep in touch with me, and so I'm going to try to help him out on everything he needs to do.
That's great, and that just makes me always excited for the community we have, right? Like that's the kind of stuff I love hearing about. That we're just trying to keep when we see people succeeding, figuring out like how can we help them, especially when we connect well with them. That's great. Um, for other people, or even the person you were just talking about who's doing well, but what advice would you give to people aspiring to be a judge, whether they're just, they're curious, or the people who have just now started working with their local tournament organizers at their home store?
Um, Something that was really hard for me is just try to be confident. The whole, like I said, fake it till you make it. But
Mhm.
understand you will make mistakes. You are human, and you can get a call wrong. Even Jonah says like he can get a call wrong, even though he's in charge of the entire judge community. He can make a mistake. He has made mistakes in the past when in other judge programs. So just go into it knowing that you could make a mistake. You probably will make a mistake, but learn from it and grow from it. Don't let it take you out and like just quit altogether. So you kind of have to have this combination of go in there, act like you know what you're doing even if you don't, and then be ready to find the resources that'll help you. There's discords where you can like, I don't know this question, answer this question, but be willing to make that leap. Like my first one, I didn't know if this was the right call or not. I couldn't find it in the rules really quickly, so I was just like, you know what? I've decided this. And in the environment as the head judge, you are the final arbiter. Even if you're wrong for that tournament, that is the correct answer. That's how
Mhm.
they have to do it to have a tournament flow.
Yeah.
It makes people upset sometimes, but you have to have that final say in one person. And even
Yeah.
if they're wrong, it's you have to, as a player, you have to have the understanding that you know people aren't perfect. But my number one goal, like I said before, is for the players to walk away with, even though I might have lost, I had a good time. It was a good environment, and I'll know better next time.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said a lot of great things there, and I think that's what we everyone, even as players, have to take away from that. It's like you're going to make mistakes even when you play, like you're human, and just acknowledge that that can happen, allow it to happen, and learn from it and move on. And and judges, or head judge is always going to have that final decision, and the goal is obviously, kind of said, like trying to make sure people have a good time, but you also have to keep the tournament flow going, and sometimes that may mean, hey, we made a call after some decision after the event was over. Maybe it wasn't the right one, but at the time that was the best call there. And we see that in other things, whether it's other tabletop games or even sporting events, where head referees make the call, and it's just like, yeah, maybe afterwards that wasn't the right one, but you have to play the game as if it is, and you have to just keep moving forward, um,
Yes,
for good or bad.
agree.
So let's get into the event now. What was the crowd like at this one? So I was at the last Dallas PQ. It was exciting. It was the first one, so everyone was really excited. It was a packed house down over in Common Ground Games in Dallas, Texas. So yeah, what was the crowd like at this one?
It was the same place, Common Ground Games in Dallas, and the crowd was overall very friendly. I liked it. It was everybody was nice to each other, and there wasn't really that many problems. But it was also still a competitive environment. Like that's it, competitively friendly is the best way I could say. You,
Yeah, I
you
think that's
are
how I
supposed
describe a
to,
lot of Star Wars. Yeah.
yeah, you're supposed to like be open to your other players and have a rapport with them. And that this game is built by its foundations of being more of a social game where you take actions back and forth. And with that is like it's also required for like if I play a unit with a bounty on it and it dies, I'm supposed to remind my opponent, hey, my unit had a bounty on it, do this. Even though it might be competitively advantageous for you to be like, oh, they didn't see it, I'm not going to do it. That's actually wrong for you, and you could be penalized. So
Yeah.
having that open dialogue between you and the opponent is a good thing, and you're supposed to remind each other of triggers and everything else. The only one you don't have to remind them on is when it's a May. And so if it's a May ability, you don't have to remind them, but I think a lot of people like would, at least locally here, if someone missed a May trigger, I might be like, "Hey, you could do this." And so it's not as cutthroat as other games I've played.
Yeah. No, and that's definitely it. Everyone comes in competitive, but knows they need to communicate. And all the PQs I've been to, it's always the first thing they remind us of is exactly that rule of, everyone's responsible for the board state, which means communication, which is not bad, not bad at all. What was it like working with the store directly? So you said they had a tournament organizer helping you out. Last time there was a lot of judges there, a lot of tournament organizers, and I know there was also some partnerships with bucket heads and getting some stuff done. So a lot of support there. Was it the same at this recent one they did, and what was that like for you?
It was very similar. I know Bucketheads weren't there. They were competing this time. But also, I talked to Charlie beforehand, and I was like, Charlie is the TO, I should say. He's kind of in charge there at Common Ground Games. And I said, if you don't have like a featured table, it kind of helps this tournament run more smoothly,
Hmm.
because sometimes when you have a table that they're streaming for, it could cause delays, and it could cause like, oh, well, we're still waiting on the streaming game. We had an extra 5 minutes because they weren't ready to stream, and that can cause conflicts with running the tournament on the side.
Yeah.
And but that's basically it for that. The setup of the store was really great. They had desks and at the back, and they had all their TVs out so you could see how much time was left in the round and everything else. And having that right setup where you're accessible to the players, but you also have your own little area to confer, and having TVs out there to tell everybody else this is the time left in the round. I think that could be a very key thing that could make or break an event.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and being able to one of the things I think being a head judge is being able to adapt to the environment. Um, you just have to learn the ins and outs and go with the flow with the TO. Because like in my first PQ, I brought my own laptop and I had my own laptop to work on, and I did everything out of that. Whereas this one, they're like, well, we have our own computer set up, and it worked out better that I didn't even use my laptop.
Hmm.
And so you just kind of have to work with your environment, figure out how to set it up, and as a head judge, be adaptable, but also figure out exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, and I assume this was probably your first time going down because you're for people who don't know, you live in the state of Oklahoma, and both states
Correct.
you've gone out of state to head judge at these planetary qualifiers. So my assumption is the first time you went to these stores was to be a head judge. Is that correct? Like you've not been
That
into
is
these stores as a
th-
player ever.
that is correct.
Yeah.
My first one was in Kansas City, and I drove 5 hours north and got a hotel and did it. And I've never seen the store before. These are all new people to me. But I also think in some ways that's kind of helpful, because
Hmm.
having the head judge be someone that's not from the area is kind of
Yeah.
helpful, because the all the floor judges, you could tell they had friends in the crowd, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, so and so," and they'd be talking. So having that head judge that's not going to play favorites, or is not going to seen as a favorite, can be helpful to a tournament environment. Like, they're not going to accuse me of having a bias because I don't know the player from any other player.
Yeah.
And so it's a good thing. And then like you said, I went down to Dallas. That's the first time I've been to Common Ground Games, and I really liked the store. I liked the environment. I liked how everything was set up, and it was an open, accepting environment for everybody, no matter what, how you identify. I'll just say it that way. They were
Correct.
very
Yeah.
open, no matter how you identify, and it feels good to have an environment like that.
Yes, Common Ground Games is definitely one of the top stores in the country. On the store side of the industry, I'm very aware of how many awards they win. um, and they're
Okay.
one of the first premier stores for Magic, so their quality level of what they present is very good, and the atmosphere they create. And I'm with you. Just the fact of how inclusive they are to make sure everyone can have a good time there and be welcoming, I think is even more of a testament of the kind of store they are and who they want to be, and why you won't hear many people talk bad about them. They do great events. They have great staff, and and they support a lot of games. It's great. Um, Overall, how do you feel like this Dallas PQ went? Good time, exciting time. I wasn't hearing a lot of things after the weekend. Anything crazy that happened, so that's always good. But how would you rate the weekend overall?
Overall, I think it went great. I think I had a really good time. I think for the most part, everybody thought it was great. I got a lot of feedback that they had a good time, and I don't think there were any major problems. The biggest problems we had were a couple of guys that were complaining about how the tournament worked. One guy got kind of angry about not having a lunch break, but if it's your first time in a competitive environment, like that's something I learned a long time ago. Usually, you bang out all Swiss rounds and then you go to dinner and then come back,
Yeah.
and sometimes not even then. Sometimes you go Swiss straight into Top Cut, and you have to be prepared. You might prepare next time by bringing your own lunch or having somebody there that's not playing that can go get you food, or taking advantage of food options there. Like,
Hmm.
you can always call DoorDash or somebody else. Or like this event, they said everybody up until like at the end of round one, we're just taking people. If you want pizza, let us know. We're ordering a bunch of pizza for everybody, and then you can have pizza. Well, that gentleman didn't take care of it. He didn't think that he needed to order the pizza, and then was upset when we didn't take a lunch break. So, but that's
Yeah.
kind of how the tournament organizer ran things, and not necessarily, it wasn't on me. So,
No.
from my point of view, it was great. It was a great time, and I feel like my floor judges were great, and I kind of like them to field most of the calls, and then if they don't know something, they can escalate it to me. That way, I can be available for everything else. So it was an overall a great time, I think.
Yeah, and I didn't check the numbers. What do you remember? How many y'all had at this event?
110, I believe,
Okay.
112 actually, and it was
Oh,
the Kansas City was like 120 something as well. So I've been in that 110 to 120 range for both of my tournaments. So it
yeah,
can
it's
be a lot
working.
of people.
A lot of people, a lot of rounds. That's for sure. A lot of rounds. Were there any decks in the top 8 that you were surprised to see? Now, the winner of this event was Anakin
And it can blue.
Blue. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the garbage roller guys, local Texans there. But what were there any other decks that that you were surprised to see, or even excited that you saw make it?
Probably the most excited one I saw was seeing Emperor ECL make it to the top 8 as this
Hmm.
kind of like soft control deck, or however he was playing it. Like, and then I was overall just surprised by everything. Like the top 8 was two Kylo Rens, a Han. Matter of fact, it wasn't even Han Yellow. It was Han something else, I believe. And then
On
Anakin,
green.
and it was just. I'd have to go back and look. I'm not 100%, but I was surprised by the whole thing. I was thinking there'd be more Han Yellow, more Sabine, and it just showed that a diverse environment can change things.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I've been happy with a lot of the top 8 results we're seeing. Obviously, we're still seeing, probably more Hans and Sabines than normal, but it's not all of that, and that's always fun. Um, what was there any challenging ruling that you had to make that day? Um,
The most,
yeah.
I don't know about the most challenging. I'm going to break this down into two different answers.
Okay.
Um, One of them, I uh, I wasn't sure on. Like I said, I am not infallible. I make mistakes. And so I went to my other floor judges and I was like, "Hey, I think this is how it works." And then they reminded me of something else. And if I would have just made it, if I would have just been there and been stubborn, I would have got it wrong. And
Mm,
so sometimes you don't know the exact answer. Talk to your other floor judges. Even as the head judge, don't think you're above them because you're head judge. Like I ran by a lot of questions with them just to verify that I'm not making a mistake. But the most challenging one, the second part of the answer, was having to hand out a game loss to the
mm.
first match in a top 8 because of
Ooh,
a deck
yeah.
list problem. The he did not he left off an entire 3 cards, like one
Ooh.
slot of cards. So he registered on his deck list, 47 cards.
Right.
So we were able to correct that and go on with that, but if it would have been caught sooner, it wouldn't have been as detrimental. But starting with a game loss in the top 8 in the cut really hurts.
Yeah, yeah. So they had a legal deck, but had an illegal deck list, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that would be a game loss. I know that one. I got 2 points
Yeah.
for that. Not in the top 8 though. Um, yeah, I've seen that happen at a few events. It's definitely the reminder for people to always be checking both, before you submit them, before you turn them in. Um, you can even be like me, check it, submit it, go back, get it back from the judge, check it again, and still get it wrong. So maybe check it 3 times. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
but
or it might be a good idea to have somebody else look over it. Because if you have someone that's trusted that you don't think that you don't need to hide your deck list from,
hmm
you sometimes write down those cards so many times that you think, "Oh yeah, I wrote that card down," and you didn't.
yeah,
And so,
I I think that's the best advice. Have someone else check your list before you submit it, because yeah, those 2 points, like you don't want that game loss. We had that in Portland. I had someone in a game against me first round. It was messed up, and they had to take the loss, which it is annoying. You never want it to happen.
yeah.
But yeah.
And on the other hand, to show you how open the community is I think it was round 2, one of the guys self-reported. It's like, "Hey, I think I have a problem with my deck list." And self-reported the problem. I mean, I still had to give him a game loss, but
Yeah.
he figured it out when he was going through his cards. It's like, "Hey, I think I submitted the wrong thing in my deck list." We got it corrected, but self-reporting your own error, he was able to get his game loss over in round 2 and not till sometime later if he went there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Because by that time it's already corrected. So he doesn't have to
yeah.
worry about it coming up and getting a game loss later, which is great. Were
Yes.
there any you've kind of already answered this. So maybe we'll skip this one because I was going to ask you, did any game situations require extra input? But you were saying you were going to your other judges for input no matter what. And you
Yes.
mentioned one situation already. I don't know if you want to go to further details with that, but I know you kind of told us you're really good at including other judges already.
Yes. This pertaining situation was how the unique rule works when you
Mm,
have a unit out and you play another one. And if I were to remember just off the top of my head, like when Luke comes out, the unique triggers and his when played can give you the -6, -6.
mm-hmm,
But they presented it as Cad Bane, and he played a second Cad Bane, and he's like, "Can I capture the cards?" And I was
mm,
like, "I don't think it works that way." And then someone else in the judge group, I pulled it to the side, and I was like, "This feels wrong, but I'm thinking if I just had to make a guess, it doesn't work that way." And then I was reminded, "Hey, when Luke dies, his when played." So it's the timing of the uniqueness and how it's defeated and how uniqueness goes. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, duh. This has already been a ruling on another card, just not this exact same scenario. So
Hmm.
Cad Bane's when played, you can play a second Cad Bane, send the units back to the other side of the board, and recapture those same units. And someone's like, why would they want to do that? And I was like, well, if you looked over at the board state, it was like 6 damage out of 7 on Cad Bane or whatever it was. He was 1 point from dying.
Right.
So he was basically resetting Cad Bane to have full health and capture the cards again.
Right. Yeah.
So it made total sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. That'd be the only reason I do it, especially if I know they don't have the board state to kill Cad Bane next turn. It's just a safe way of keeping them out there. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're definitely in a weird month of stuff with different calls from other PQs and Star Wars and some topics we already talked about that judges experience. There's been a lot of judge issues in Magic lately at some Star City events. When you go to these events, how do you manage players' emotions and intensity while trying to keep the competition fair? Because although a lot of people may come, willing to have fun, there's always going to be someone who's more competitive than someone else. Um, how do you approach these situations? You may have not experienced any, but just kind of curious on how you plan on approaching them if
I
you
would I
haven't
would
already.
say I would say there was one ruling I made that would be in this area that you're asking. One person knew the correct ruling, the opponent thought it was incorrect, and I had to side with player A. Like, it is correct. It doesn't feel right. I don't even myself it doesn't feel right, but that's how it is. And so what I did was I I wasn't standing over them. I squatted down, got eye level with both the players. So I was like more on their level and I was explaining to the ruling to them and saying by the book this is the way it happens. And I was like, I'm sorry. I understand why you would think it would be this way, but the official ruling is XYZ. And I think sometimes getting on their level and being like, I'm sorry, I know this sucks, but it was ruled this way for a reason, and I'm just going by what was ruled by the powers above me. Like, I think it's a little weird that this ruling was made this way, but it is the way it is ruled, and there's nothing I can do about it. But just I think squatting down, getting on their level with them, and then being sympathetic to their situation, but still holding firm can make players' emotions better
Yeah,
instead of just you know nose sticking your nose to them like, well, this is the way it is.
yeah,
It's not helpful to the environment.
yeah. I know if I want to be, if I'm going to be corrected on something, I would definitely hope someone would not talk down to me to do it. So I think you're right. I love that approach. I love just trying to help them understand, but try to come at it out of place of just like this isn't to tell you you're wrong. It's more of just to explain, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I know you've talked a little bit. You've come out with a lot from this past event, but um, what was the big takeaway for you after this one? This is your second event, first time in Dallas, first time working with Common Ground Games. Um, Another season zero PQ for you, but what was your takeaway from this one for yourself?
um every experience is a learning experience. Go into
Hmm.
it with knowing that you don't know everything, but also if you're going to be a floor judge or a head judge, be able to rely on your other judges. Like I said, like the groupthink aspect of it. Like, be open to the fact that you might be wrong and you're human and you're not infallible, and have that open discourse with your other judges. That way they feel comfortable talking to you as well. And just having that open experience and knowing and them thinking, hey, even he doesn't know everything. Like, I think it opens up more discourse, and sometimes when a group of people get together they make better decisions than just a single person. But always have in the back of your mind that you are the final arbiter, and even
Hmm.
if it's just like you and the judges can't agree, you as a head judge or as a floor judge looking to your head judge does have the final ruling, and even if he's not correct, like you just have to go with it. And
Yeah.
as a player, like you have to be open to the understanding that they might not be correct, but it's a learning experience, and I'm sure if I made a mistake, and probably have made mistakes, I don't know. But if I made a mistake, it would be a learning experience. And so I would know next time, hey, I made this call wrong. I need to do something. And and that kind of goes into a situation that happened with the game loss in the top cut. It was actually against that garbage roller player that went ahead and that won the whole thing. His
Oh wow.
opponent was the one
Yeah.
that got the game loss. And so they started off with a game loss. The opponent won the first one. The guy that ended up winning the tournament won the second one. And he said, "Judge, can we have a third game?" He wanted to make it fair. And I honestly really thought about it. And I really, really wanted to give him the third game because that's the sporting thing to do.
Hmm.
But then I sat there and I gave it a good 5 minutes. I gave him an extension, and I had to come back with, "I'm sorry, but I have to stick with the game loss."
Yeah.
Because if I gave him a redo, it would invalidate all the game losses I handed out beforehand.
Yeah.
And it would set up future people being like, "Well, that head judge in Dallas, he let them play a third game even though it was a game loss." So
Yeah.
I can't take that upon myself of creating an unfair environment and not letting the opponent not being strict with every opponent and letting that happen. But as a player, as a person, I really, really wanted to give them a game three because that's what feels good. And I think that's the difference between being a head judge and being a player. You have to go with the hard decision, and it hurts.
No. It's a good takeaway though, and it's just sometimes like we may want to do more, but it's just like it's kind of said, like sometimes you just gotta like, hey, for the sake of everyone and how the event went, it's better to keep the original ruling. As much as everyone would like to see it or saw it was like warranted to have that third match for sportsmanship, it's like, well, the other part is structure and rules. So
Yeah,
gotta keep. Last question for you. What would you say to a player who hasn't attended a PQ and is considering attending the next one?
I would say go and do it. It's a great time. Even though everybody's there to win, everybody's friendly,
Hmm.
and I feel Star Wars Unlimited is a very good environment. It's friendly and open, regardless of your circumstances.
Yeah.
And even if you lose every game, I think you'll still have a good time as long as you get the fellowship with the other players. And
Yeah.
a lot of people go in there and try to win and they get upset, and you can't control everybody else's emotions. You can only control how you react to the other players. And as long as you go with the objective of having fun and doing your best, I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's definitely worth trying. That's what I would tell anyone. And Jeffrey, you're right. It's just you go in with the right attitude. You go in wanting to have a good time. You'll get what you put into it, and you'll meet a lot of people who are excited for Star Wars or enjoy the game, and people there who just want to have fun. Of course, there's people who want to be more competitive, but overall, just the people I meet have been great. You and I have met through games, and again, that's what we said at the beginning. There's something special about the connections you make being a tabletop player, and you make a lot more connections when you're going to these events, and um, you never know. You may go to one and you never miss another one there. And I love going to places like Dallas Common Ground Games and other stores across the country and seeing people I only see at big events. I think it's great. Jeffrey, you're going to be doing a couple of other PQs. We know you're set up for Kansas City here. This next one that's going to be in next week, I believe, first weekend in
Yeah,
February.
a week from today, I'll be leaving to go drive up there and get my hotel, and then it'll be Saturday.
Great. And then you have a couple other ones. We won't mention them yet because we'll wait for the dates to get posted. But you have a couple other ones coming up um, after this set release of Jump to Lightspeed. And but
Yes.
yeah, if people wanted to see you at other stores in the country, where do you normally play? I know you play in the Oklahoma area, but why don't you tell the audience here where you play and what cities in Oklahoma those stores are?
I play in Norman at Wizards Asylum Comics and Games. That's my
Mm-hmm.
primary home store. But I'll also go to a couple other stores. There's a Games HQ in Oklahoma City, and there's Edmond Unplugged in Edmond. All three of those stores are great places, and I think the biggest stores in our area are Wizards on Thursday and Edmond on Thursday. Why they had to be both on Thursday, I don't know. Like,
How many people do you guys see on Thursday at one of those events?
I'd probably say there's usually 10 to 12 at each one minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And so
That's
like
great.
if we went and had a different environment, like we if we could switch off and do different days, I think we could have more players, but it's still a good time. And then
And
it's
those are
not a
both on
hundred.
different sides of the city. For people who don't know,
Yeah.
Edmond is north of Oklahoma City, and Norman is south of Oklahoma City. So even though these two stores are split and have the same days, they do pretty much cater to two different sides of the city.
Yeah, they're
So,
about 30 to 45 minutes apart. So I mean, it's
hmm
far enough that and I know you got people and that go to Edmond that come from even further north, like Cashin, Oklahoma, and other
yeah.
places, and so they just can't make it down to Norman, which is another reason why. I mean, it makes sense, but for those in the middle, they have to choose. And
Yeah.
one other place that I possibly could be at that you can meet me at is I'm going to try to be a player at the Wichita one coming up in a couple weeks, in 3 weeks, I think.
Well,
So
there we go.
I
Wichita,
didn't sign up.
Kansas.
I didn't sign up to be a judge, but I'm on the waiting. I'm not on the waiting list. I'm signed up to be a player, and if it all works out, I'll be playing. Don't know what I'm going to be playing yet, but I've got lots of ideas.
I hope you already have one of those sweet judge promos and can play with one of those cards.
I already have the Sweet
Um,
Judge promos, and
oh,
I'll be
yeah,
getting
play with.
another one. I'll be getting another one in a week.
Well, that's great. Well, Jeffrey, thanks so much for taking the time. I'm excited to hear about how the Kansas City goes, as well as how your Wichita event goes. I hope people do get a chance to see you there, talk to you a little bit, and learn more about what it's like being a judge and specifically a head judge. But thank you so much for filling us in a little bit more, giving us a little bit more of your perspective from the Dallas PQ that just happened this last weekend. And again, I appreciate you. I'm so glad you and I have reconnected and are starting to chat again. And I can't wait till next time I'm in town and we can sit down and play some Star Wars Unlimited together.
That'd be great. Like I'm looking forward to it. And if you do ever find me in person, don't be shy. Ask me questions. I'm open to being a helpful person. Like if you need help with something, or if you just need a question answered about Star Wars or whatever it may be, I'm open to questions. And like I tell people at the very beginning of the tournament, when if you have a question, no matter how dumb or stupid you think it is, there's no stupid questions. If you have a question, someone else might have that same question, or sometimes you just don't know. If it's your first time, you might not know. So don't be shy about raising your hand and asking a judge for help. Or if you see me out and about, don't feel bad. Don't think you're hindering me or causing me problems. Ask away. I'm always available.
I appreciate you saying that, Jeffrey. I think that's exactly what people want to hear, so they don't so they do take you up on that. And so, thanks so much for sharing that wisdom and that encouragement. Thanks everyone else for watching and listening to this longer interview. And as we just look at the Dallas PQ, appreciate everyone. Good luck at your future planetary qualifiers, your future events. And, again, if you're curious about becoming a judge, there are some channels out there in Discord and Facebook. If you need help finding those, you can always message me, and I'm happy to direct you to those resources. But everyone, thanks again. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you.